Hello there. Welcome. This is the first YouTube video of this style, which I would like to. You are welcome to sit on my lap if you'd like. You can come on. Come on up. Just behave. This is the first YouTube video on the Cultivate channel that is going to just be me speaking to the camera. Some folks have mentioned that they'd want to hear some of the conversations that we've had on events recently. A little more expansion, a little more just time for me to give you some updates about the center, give you some maybe some little, I don't want to say gems, I don't want to say anything that makes me sound like I'm too full of myself here. Just a man with a cat here outside under a mango tree. Maybe that's the name of the section. A man with a cat under a mango tree. And I think in a future video I'd like to discuss a little bit about who should have a platform, and do I think I deserve a platform, or am I just taking advantage? And I'm very open to that level of inspection because I think it matters. But for now, we'll take that for granted. We'll save that for the next video. I want to save some time every week just to give, you cannot touch the camera though, the mic, just to give you a little bit of background about the center and maybe touch on a topic today that I might call the halfway healer, and talk a little bit about the relationship of some of the more traditional and more authentic healing arts and some of the more new age arts, and how they interact, and perhaps do they have any value for each other? Is that value only one directional? Is one group just taking from the other, or is there something that we can learn from the other group? I think we'll just start with a little update. So this past week was the first event that we had at Cultivate Costa Rica at our center, aka my house, plus currently 3 cabins. We're going to have a 4th dormitory style cabin built in the near future. We're currently working on a 30-meter by 12-meter giant movement space that's partially roofed so that we can still have things running in the rainy season while staying open, because sometimes it's lovely just to have open air and be outside and enjoy the sky. I don't want to cover up the stars. I don't want to completely cover up the sun. I do want a space to train when it rains, and that's why I'll show you as we go along what that space is going to look like. So right now we have capacity for 6 folks to come down. We'll probably take advantage of just about all of that capacity at an event. Again, these are still private events in April. For now, we just had a little gang of 2 plus myself that were in town this past week, and it was a really wonderful experience to be able to talk shop with folks that are really on the ground floor of what we're trying to do at Cultivate, and are really authentically interested in some of what we offer. So what is it that we offer? This is where the mission statement gets really interesting. Cultivate Costa Rica, apart from offering an arm that is apparently tasty for a cat, we offer movement medicine and meditation. And so from what areas do we take from? What is our goal? We are a healing center, or a longevity center, or a life cultivation center, depending on how you want to put it. Taoism has a concept of cultivation. We have multiple words in Chinese that could be translated to cultivation. The one that I'm thinking of more right now is in the Yangsheng variety. And what is Yangsheng? Yangsheng is life cultivation, more or less literally. It's often translated as longevity, because it gives a lot to our lives, both extending our lifespan by treating our body well, our mind well, and our spirit well, and understanding the connection between those 3. And perhaps they aren't connected, perhaps they were all the same thing to start with. As well as, it can also be translated as a healing center. Yangshengguan could be, flexibly translated as a healing center. So people come because they're looking for guidance on their health, and perhaps some are sick, some are hurting, and they want a very simple plan to go home with. We can do a lot in an immersive setting that you really can't necessarily do if you just go, even if you have a consistent acupuncturist, physical therapist, a whole team close to you. There's something about removing yourself from your situation and going to someplace else that is really unique and can create health effects and healing results that just you can't get in other situations. And within that, I think it's also helpful to have, and this is not to me to say that I'm the best at any of these things, but to have a specialist who is an integrative practice on their own. For example, I could be working with someone in acupuncture and have a finding that's going to give us a lot of information on what we need to focus on when we go to the movement section. And it may be, we may be working together, even watching someone meditate and seeing the quality that they tend to fall into when they start to interact with their own mind through reports verbally and also through just watching. Body language, facial expression, posture, all of these things, they all influence each other and they all give me a really clear picture of what's going on with somebody. And I think in normal therapeutic settings, that's really difficult to get to. And that's why I'm saying I'm not necessarily tooting my own horn by saying that, because I could be having an hour or even hour and a half session with somebody in a small clinic treatment room, and I'm not getting the same results as if they come down and live with me and I have them 24 hours a day and I get to spend time with them. Maybe not 24 hours a day, but I have them for maybe a couple sessions a day, excuse me. And we get to spend a meal or two together, and we get to really like talk and go deeper into what might be bothering somebody, what might be at the root of some of their pain or discomfort, or even just feeling like they could be doing better at something, health wise, or even in their external life, they feel held back in some way. So it's really a opportunity to be able to have that immersive environment. So what movements do we do? Uh, this particular, we'll call it retreat or immersion or event. I'll probably use those words interchangeably. This particular immersion we focused on during the morning. We focused on a morning set of Qigong practices that are relatively simple to learn. We would say one to maybe two sets we focused on in the mornings. One was the five elements morning qigong that we practiced at the Five Immortals Temple at Wudang Whitehorse Mountain in China. I was really grateful to go there. I've been a student of Lindsay Wei at Wudang Whitehorse for a long time. For those of you who don't know me, which eventually there may be many of you that don't know me that see this. For now, I think it's more people that know me. Um, and so I credit her for opening that gate completely, and for kind of bringing that lifestyle into an immersive setting, because that's also how I've learned from her, is in this very immersive sort of environment that has results that are far greater than the sum of its parts. And so we practice that five elements morning qigong, and then we practice a series of, we could more accurately describe them as Dao Yin, guiding and pulling the qi, or sometimes translated as Taoist yoga. They also would fall under Qigong because they involve a breathing technique and timing the motions with the breath. And that would be the 3 vertebrae 7 posture form. And so that was our morning routine for an hour every morning. And then there were other movement sessions where we focused more on the strength and conditioning side of things. And then there were acupuncture sessions as well. Acupuncture and Tuina massage and cupping and moxibustion. And so it ended up being a very, even with only spending, let's say, 3 or 4 dedicated hours to movement, because they were both working at the same time, getting other things done while they were in the area, ends up being a very hyper-focused container to learn new movement patterns, to really uncovering weaknesses. They both came away with one particular movement area, which we worked on from both the Qigong set, even down to standing meditation posture and just being able to let go of certain muscle groups to maintain a certain posture, to the strength mobility section is the same pattern. The same pattern shows up. We have these movement signatures, and it's wonderful to have a full body routine to maintain things, but ultimately one of the benefits of having that immersive experience is you can come down and say, oh, this is, if I want a lot of bang for my buck, this is the thing I have to attack. My ability to flex my pelvis under my body. If that's locked up all the time, I will have back pain. It will be a struggle to find consistency exercising, even though so many other things are like off the charts and good in someone's health. That can be the one. Versus, finding a certain point of your chest that's just chronically closed, and perhaps that's causing all sorts of systemic stuff to go on. Perhaps that's influencing the ability of our lungs. We would call in Chinese medicine, our lungs relate to our metal. and our metal controls the wood. So the ability to breathe and relax and open is directly correlated with the controlling cycle of controlling wood, which would be our stress hormone, which would be our ability to sleep through the night, which would be our ability to, there's so much involved with that, but our ability to create the free flow and free circulation of qi throughout the body. And so uh, we get heavy time on diagnosis is just people that I've worked with before. It's a really intimate environment and they've never met each other, but we're aware of each other through both having worked in the health and wellness industry for some time and having friends in common. And it's okay, they're just dogs. They can bark. You can go down. You're making me a little tense from being up. And so it's really wonderful to form that community and see individuals that are like-minded come together and really bounce ideas off of one another. And for example, two individuals who are more business oriented than I am, I've been focusing on content and what I'm teaching for a long time, as opposed to the business aspect and just letting that come and go organically. Hearing their perspectives and sharing their perspectives with each other and noticing the phases of life that we're in, and all the good human connection stuff that we should always have, right? But sometimes it's really wonderful to just take a break from our normal lives and focus on that for a moment with the same goals in mind. So there was no name to this immersion. The goals were individual to both people while they were here, whether that's getting work projects done in Costa Rica while at the same time learning, or it's more on the, I have a baby on the way and I really want to make sure that my low back pain is gone, and I will have the tools when I go home to make sure it stays gone, even when life asks more of me, right? That's a very unique stage of life. You're on the floor a lot more than you might otherwise be with a little one entering the picture. My shoe is very stained. We have, if you ever come to my house, my center, we're on 1.3 acres, so we'll call it my center. You might have bananas growing in your backyard. You should know that they stain your shoes, even if they're liquid that comes off when you chop them down is clear and transparent. When it gets on your shoe, it'll give you quite a stain, which the woman who cleans the cabins was explaining to me. Too late for me to understand. But there are a lot of bananas, so we have a lot of fruits that are available for the picking. And are you not comfortable? We'll move you here. All right, you get comfortable. And so that's a wonderful highlight. The medicinal garden is underway. We're waiting really for the rains to come because things will grow a lot faster when the rains will come. So we have about 15 to 20 traditional Chinese medicine herbs that are already in pots ready to be put in the ground. And we have wonderful friends of mine that are kind of smuggling me a few more seeds so that we can grow some more medicinals. I think that's probably around 10 more variety that are coming in. So we're going to have a really cool traditional Chinese medicine garden across the property with various corners of the property so that you can really experience the herbs in the habitat that they're meant to be. Some are going to be needing drier climates. Some are going to be needing to have like a little man-made pool just to keep them watered all the time, keep them ready, keep them near a water source. And that's a whole nother level of learning that I think I'll go into in a separate video. So why am I thinking about the halfway healer today? Because when I spend time and do events, for example, I did a really rich, wonderful community acupuncture session with some sound healers today. And there's some people in the Chinese medicine community that really like to make us very clinical. There's some people who might feel that by interacting with the more newer healing crowd, that we're diluting our medicine or something like that. And I think they have a point. I think that they have a really big point. One of the things that attracts me strongly about Taoism, and specifically the lineage that I'm a part of under Shifu Linzi, through the Chunyang sect of Taoism, through Five Immortals Temple. One of the things that really draws me to that is the strictness, honestly, is the direction, is the quality control of that. I think I would really love to, sometimes be like on the more, like if it was just me in the world, I'd love to be more on the like out there side and say crazy stuff that gets views and likes and all that. But our practices have been passed down for so long that in a way that's maintained quality control. And I have to trust and respect that process. And that's why I really choose community over, kind of just being like, whatever. In when I structure my business model, when I structure the events that I'm doing, when I decide what to change of the things, especially that I've learned from Taoism, first of all, and then traditional Chinese medicine, second of all. And so within that, because I think third of all, the movement, strength conditioning side, I feel like I have a lot of space to roam within that world. And even on the East Asian martial arts side, there's an element of, does it work or not, that allows for a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of introspection all the time that, perhaps some of the more conduct-based and respect-based and culture-based aspects of the tradition, we need a little bit more, guidance, maybe a little bit more strictness, maybe a little bit more, this is how we do things. Even if other people do things this way, we still maintain ourselves over here. So would I call the New Age healing community halfway healers? No, but there are a lot of them that are. And what would be a halfway healer? What what am I talking about when I say that term? I'm referring to somebody who's, maybe they've taken a weekend course, or maybe they've learned something online. Maybe it's about plant medicine or herbs. Maybe it's about physical body work, but they don't have any sort of license or training beyond a couple weekends. Maybe it's even in movement and meditation. And they're kind of coming from the place of, this is supposed to heal you, but they haven't really had mentors. They haven't really had much schooling. They haven't really had, opportunities to go really, really deep and maybe be corrected by somebody who's walked a little further down the path than them. So in some ways, they're kind of these like Ronin type figures, these kind of like masterless healers. And I think I love the enthusiasm, and I love the desire to help. And I think a lot of these folks have a heart full of goals, even when they maybe don't have a complete picture. And I think that there also is a little bit of harm done when you're early in that process and you don't have a way of checking and balancing yourself. You don't have a mentor that's going to do that for yourself. You don't have multiple lenses that you're overlaying on each other to do that. And so when we think about the world of alternative medicine or new age spirituality, you have a lot of that, where it's people kind of deciding and making it up as they go, or reading an ancient text without a teacher that's going to give them the background in it. And again, I think these things are wonderful, but I do think that if you would like to continue past a certain point, you really owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people you work with to get more education. And so within the world of alternative medicine, I don't think that traditional Chinese medicine belongs in the world of alternative medicine. As an acupuncturist that was educated in the US, I did 4 full-time years, a full master's, part of a doctorate, more than 4,000 hours, more than 1,000 hours of supervised practice once I was already, knew how to throw needles into people. excuse my way of talking. Or practice Tui Na massage or these other arts, these cupping, moxibustion, things like that. And so that sort of level of medicine, coupled with the fact that for more than 3,000 years, for 3,000 recorded years, where people were writing things down, but probably more like 5 to 8,000 in a similar way, acupuncture and Chinese medicine have been practiced as medicine. You wouldn't like, an acupuncturist in 800 AD was not like, he's an acupuncture doctor. It's like, no, he's a doctor. He's doing medicine. You could say like the father of surgery in China was actually somebody who was an acupuncturist. But I don't know if they would really identify as specialty acupuncturists because they were doctors. They were working with plants, which were the pharmaceuticals back then. And still to this day, something like 80% of pharmaceuticals come from plant extracts. So we're not exactly as far away from the plant world as we think, even when some of these pharmaceuticals are imbalanced and kind of like souped up in one energetic direction that may not serve the whole organism. They're still coming from the earth in some way, and we're not creating things so often out of thin air. And when we are, we're usually using nature as an inspiration. So I don't think acupuncture belongs in alternative medicine. I do think other things do. Um, and that is why I think some of my friends that are in acupuncture and Chinese medicine might look down on somebody who's kind of more of a new age healer. And I don't think that's a helpful viewpoint, but I understand where they're coming from because they've done a lot more work and they've had to really go through that schooling process where it really changes our perspective on how to see the human body that you really cannot do if you go for a couple weekend courses, for example. And so, what do we do with these halfway healers? Because on the one hand, many of them really do want to improve their skills. They really have hearts full of gold, like I said. They really want to go places and help people. And yeah, sometimes I think within the healing community, and this is true of doctors and the halfway healers, um, there's a tendency to get caught up in ego when I heal you and I'm going to feed my education and feed my knowledge base because I want to be this grandiose doctor. Dr. Gabor Mate actually goes into detail on this on a particular podcast I was listening to not too long ago. And I thought it was really an interesting admission that he was like, my first interaction with medicine was from my ego. I wanted to be the healer. I wanted to not just help people, but have everyone know that I was smart and competent and could help people. And that's an okay place to start. What the problem is when you get caught there and then everything you do becomes how do I stoke my ego instead of what is really best for my people, what is really best for my community, the people that I'm working with, my patients, clients, however you'd like to refer to them. And so I think part of the vision with Cultivate Costa Rica, part of the vision with me taking a step back from seeing as many patients to focus more on education is to give these folks who really may not have the time or money to go back to school for 4 full years, give them some real tools to go out and help people. Because on the other side, when we look down as a traditional Chinese medicine community, when we start to look down at other folks and kind of gatekeep our own skills, it's normal, it's good to understand that if you don't have 4,000 hours and I have 4,000 hours, if you have 1,000, I have 4,000, I might have a little more complexity in my treatments. But as an acupuncturist, I know that I could have, just kind of taken the tip of the iceberg textbook that I learned in the first 6 months to a year, and I could be doing some good in the world with that. And perhaps I'd be affecting people that wouldn't go and come to see a professional. And perhaps we could create more people that are kind of first line of defense healers. And I think that's where the halfway healers maybe belong is not kind of like I'm the doctor and I'm going to like soup up my ego and say you don't need to do school and I'm going to do this instead, because that's an unrealistic expectation in my mind. You feel free to feel some way else. I'm just telling my opinion. But yeah, that's an unrealistic expectation. If you don't have as much training, you don't have a mentorship model, you're not going to get the results of that model. I stayed with the same mentor for several years within acupuncture school. And because of that, I do believe that I have results. I have a way of looking at the 5 phases or 5 elements. I have even just, when to abandon the traditional treatment and watching his tendencies when I can see that he's perhaps confused. How is he going to try to solve a problem when he doesn't know which way to go? I have that for my mentorship. And unless you're really working closely with somebody in a community, it's not present for you if you work outside of community. And so I think as a traditional Chinese medicine community, we don't have to have a dichotomy between gatekeeping the information on one side and on the other side, kind of selling out and saying, hey, physical therapist, I'll teach you acupuncture and call it a different name so that you can practice acupuncture legally without having to go to our school. Because that gives people confidence that maybe they shouldn't have. And I think there's a way to really convey that this stuff, there's complexity and depth. And even if you finish 4 years of full-time acupuncture school, you're still going to have cases that boggle your mind. And if you really want to get good at Chinese medicine, you need to be in community for people for decades and have the experience of having a lot of patients come through the door and having a lot of different types of patients if you want to give different types of trainees advice. If I just worked as a college sports acupuncturist like I have before, if I just did that for 10 years, I'm not going to give the best, advice on digestive symptoms. Actually, maybe that population does have a surprising amount, but or like geriatric care. I'm not going to be the expert on that, and I'd be kidding myself if I claimed to be. And that's one problem I see in the halfway healer community, is that they claim to be something where they don't really understand that they're not quite that. But finally, let me get to my point here, because I've dragged out this rant long enough, is that I think we got to give back more. Traditional Chinese medicine has been always a medicine of the people. It's been a medicine that is a cultural medicine. It has been a family medicine. I know friends who are Chinese that have a better understanding just by virtue of being around it in some capacity in their family, in maybe cultural arts like cooking, martial arts and things like that, that maybe have a better or similar understanding as people who went to school for years. So how can that be? Oh, because this is a person-to-person knowledge. And so let's start giving, as a traditional Chinese medicine community, let's start giving some tools to people that they can start to engage with this medicine in. And if they really want to be the super doctor that some of them already claim to be, they should go back to school and really get a licensure, really go all in on that track. But if their goal is more to be honest and maybe help some family members, when your mom has migraines, what can you do? When your baby can't sleep, can you troubleshoot that and figure out why, and then figure out what to do? When you bang up yourself and roll your ankle playing pickup basketball, can you know which medicines, which herbal medicines to throw on there, so in 3 days you can go back to being a good member of your community instead of, missing a whole bunch of time, work, and all these other things? Can you take care of yourself? And so for that taking care of yourself and taking care of your direct community that I think that's what's motivating me right now to dive into creating a curriculum to turn people from halfway healers, or from people with good intentions but no follow through, to real functional doctors that may only know, the tip of the iceberg, but can still help people if they find them at the tip of the iceberg. And at least knowing some things that don't have negative side effects that they can try when they see someone suffering. Because our medical system is so disempowering when you think that you only have to go to the doctor. Only one person can help you when you're suffering. What about when, I have my daughter here and she steps on something pointy and she's crying for hours? Or the example actually is getting bitten by something. It's like, do you have a spray in the house for that? Do you have a thing that you can do? You can still take them to the hospital. This is not like a choosing between things. But do you have a first line of defense? If your stomach hurts, or someone stomach hurts, do you have an idea of how to decide which end of a spectrum it's on? Is this more of an excess or a deficiency? And this is part of the curriculum that I'm developing, and these 8 diagnostic terms that we have. Can you figure out which end of the spectrum you're working with and choose the correct plants? Can you grow stuff in your garden, bring you closer to the earth? Humanity really needs that right now. There's a lot of divisiveness and a lot of forgetting that most of what human being wants is the same. And I think there's a lot of forgetfulness that we came from this. In Costa Rica, it's so interesting, it's so wonderful, because wonderful and tough at the same time, because really we're 2 generations removed. As somebody here in my 30s talking to you, we're 2 generations removed from everyone knowing plant medicine, like some basic amount of plant medicine. All the grandparents have it, and they still have it. And so there's really big cultural restoration projects to kind of safeguard that information, because the generation below them really modernized rapidly and wasn't so interested in keeping that information alive. And so, and then now you see the current generation doing a mix of, yes, this cultural restoration of indigenous practices and a kind of like a new school healing sort of thing, getting more into the psychology that comes from more of a Western world model, seeing more, like ceremonies and things that are kind of like this little hodgepodge of indigenous cultures from some of the Western world, some yoga, maybe some Chinese medicine as well. Um, and so yeah, we have these worlds where like we have one generation that's so like we want to help people and we want to use these tools to use them. Then we have an older generation's like we have the tools, they're just not as cool or let's be real, like kind of like sexy or new or fun, in some ways, but they're like we know the plants, we know what that plant is and what it does. Um, we know, like for example, I'll talk to a gardener and he'll identify 7 different types of ants on the property at the same time. And he'll tell me that one's good for arthritis, that one's good for respiratory problems, that one's kind of just like a general tonic when they mix them with alcohol, and different ways of preparing it. And that sort of knowledge is the point of traditional Chinese medicine, is to maintain that in a structured way. The wonderful thing about our medicine is we can integrate other things into that. And so that's why I think that as a community, I don't think we really should completely close the door to the new school, new age healers, because there are things within that group that we can really see and use and get to know. I'm covered in fur, of course. Um, I'll let that go for now. And for example, let's take, for example, cacao. It's so popular now. And I think if you live in a place where it's not natural, I think, I don't know, I would go for something more culturally relevant where you are, because there are populations where, yeah, you have stuff that's available instead of just kind of importing somebody else's indigenous medicine. You should look for some of your own. That's why I'm focusing a lot on planting traditional Chinese medicinals and seeing how their functions work, if they're exactly like our pharmacopoeia or they're a little bit different, and what I have to do to bring the medicine out of them. But we have to focus on what's going to be sustainable. And I think we forget we have this wonderful infrastructure and this wonderful global economy, but I think we forget that the majority of our human history, we've managed to survive with relatively limited ability to get things from the outside. We want to be in our home. We want to know what can grow here. We want to know our soil. That makes us more human. And I think that also removes a layer of anxiety that occurs when you just don't have the basic human skills to survive where you are if some shit hit the fan. And so, for example, here, I live in Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a traditional medicine. The Beribi people use it. It's present in the Chorotega community, which is where my center is. I'm at home in San Jose right now, still doing so much construction there that we have a whole center of the property open because we're building this giant 30 by 12 movement space, and we need to level the earth and bring a bunch more dirt in and make sure that we're not going to affect the power lines, and make sure it's relatively level, and we're gonna circle some trees and create some state. So it's a really involved project. I have a wonderful team that I have a lot of trust in, and I feel that I can let them be there for a week or two at a time without me needing to be on top of them. And that allows me and my daughter to kind of have a more peaceful life, not me trying to put my head into construction all the time, and focus a little bit more on doing things like this. But anyways, it grows here. It's in the community. So I could dismiss that as a new agey thing, or we could say, hey, this literally grows on trees here. This is literally so present here, and it has effects similar to other Chinese medicines. It has effects that we can put in Chinese medical terms. It can enter the heart. It can enter the liver and kidney channels. We know it's a heart opener from the New Age community, and yes, it does promote that sort of opening. That's real. That happens. We have herbs. What are we going to say, that our herbs are better because they're just in the pharmacopoeia? that we had, because cacao wasn't huge in ancient China, it would be, I think, a disservice to not use some of those things. And that's why the center, where I'm working with some land restoration people to try to bring in some indigenous plants as well, to that really fit the culture, that really fit the environment, excuse me, in addition to the Chinese medicinals. And so I take a lot of inspiration on that from Five Immortals Temple, because it was just amazing to live in that temple and to walk around and see all these Chinese medicines everywhere, and have Li Shufu, our abbot, grandmaster, and of Wudang Whitehorse and all that, to just be able to show, like, hey, here's this, here's this, here's this. And it's just all around. It's just the ornamental plants are also the medicinals. And so that's the goal for the property, is to have it look basically just like that. That we know everything has not just a form, but a function. And likewise, to be able to integrate, traditional Chinese herbs are indigenous to China. So to completely forget about local herbs and just import them would be, especially in a place where we still have, it's been transformed and it's changed, and it's certainly, there's some level of colonization, but we still have a tremendous amount of traditional knowledge in this area, in this country. And I think that's true most places that you go. Because we might say some places, oh, we don't have a community. Check, like check the name of the people that were here, whatever land that you're living in. Just do a little research before we completely dismiss that, um, and so we really want to promote that harmony between. Also, for thousands of years, people have imported plants that they like for food, and they like for decoration, and they like for medicine. So that's not incredibly a new concept either. And so that's part of the goal, is to give people the tools and the environment to start to look at whatever size plot of land that they have as an opportunity to go into that world, into the plant world. So we take inspiration from Five Immortals, from Taoist Traditions College, and what Bill Helm, Bill Helm, what's his name? Oh my God. Mary, I'm sure you're going to watch this and you're going to tell me, in Asheville, documentary is called Paradise. Amazing botanist, amazing herb grower, really specified in bringing in some traditional Chinese medicinals. And yeah, it's not Bill Helm. Anyways, Joe Hollis, yeah, taking inspiration from that, and just bringing things in, seeing what sticks, seeing what grows. Does it work the way our books say it works? Does it change because we change the location? Yeah, that's a whole nother video that I'll go into soon and give you a little rant. But like I said, I kind of just wanted to go into this. How do we interact in this world of people that we think we're more of a complete healer versus a halfway healer? How can they interact with us? And maybe the last thread I'll end on is, how do we let go of our ego in a way that serves people? It can be really tempting to work in medicine and to receive a lot of praise and a lot of people saying thank you. A lot of people saying, before I worked with Sam, I had this, this, and this, and now I don't. It can be really tempting to somehow put that back to me. Because it isn't. That's really what it comes down to. I learned these things from someone else. And if there was some intrinsic quality of me that allows me to pick things up easier or have an intuition, that comes from some combination of the great Tao and my genetics and the people I've run across, the education I've received, the privileges that I've had to be able to study medicine. And I think the interesting thing happens when we get out of that egoic healing mindset, is that it changes our relationship with how we want to be a healer. I, for example, think that a lot of my desire to work one-on-one with many patients was in part influenced by the fact that I wanted to, yeah, kind of fit a classical mold of an acupuncturist that helps people to get better in this way. And I was almost competitive with that image. Whereas, as I kind of have eased off, I think, on the ego juice that's pushing me forward and gone more into like, what impact do I actually want to leave? It's been a little bit more aligned in education. And I think that's where my skill set, because I have, my previous life was, before this, was like really full teacher and coach. Uh, from middle school to college to professional coaching, and from elementary to high school, almost taught in college, elementary to high school teaching. And I've had a lot of groups and a lot of opportunities to teach. And I even did a master's in coaching and teaching. So I have like this random background that most acupuncturists don't have in education. And I really enjoy that. It's like some of the most rewarding work that I can have. I really enjoy the deep dive work where people come for kind of a mini customized, personalized retreat, and the yeah, and the like the giving this back and spreading it. If I have an hour that I could be teaching, teaching 5 people really deep concepts on medicine, they go out and they spend the next hour working with their 5 patients. That's more than, with this model, it's just an example, that's more than the 2 patients I could see in that hour. Um, and so I really see the benefit in that. I really see that a lot of my patients additionally really were lacking the tools that they needed to stay healthy, even once the medicine took hold. Acupuncture, herbs, they got better, and then it's like they still lack community. They still feel a little isolated. They still don't have movement practices that they feel like they really resonate with. They still don't have a time during the day that they can really go inside their mind and see these thought patterns that are perhaps restricting them, perhaps pushing them into doing things that they have no interest in doing and wasting their energy in that way. And so I think, yeah, that's the movement, meditation, and medicine piece. And that's part of why, and I'll introduce this in a little more in a different video, because I think we're probably about at a time where this is getting a little dark. And listen to me talk long enough, is that I really do think that that's where, being a part of Wudang Whitehorse has brought me to a state of, oh, like some of this healing work in community, it's going to last longer. It's going to be more interconnected in the culture in a way that I just can't do if I go out and try to do it by myself. And so we'll get into that in the future. But last little announcements. Thanks for listening. I'll try to do this once a week, once a month. I don't know. Uh, Feel free to ask questions. I would love to hear from you and kind of keep these talks on track. Today I had a specific topic that I wanted to talk about, but there are plenty of times when there might be a specific topic that you want to hear about. I'm open to it in the worlds that I inhabit. And I would like to, I think the news on the center, we're running maybe a series of some, private and semi-private events for the next 6 to 8 months. And then by early November of this year, we're going to start having full immersion events, probably maybe one immersion per month for our high season in Costa Rica, our summer, which would be November until about April. And that may change if I need to travel, if I need to do something else, or maybe 2 in 1 month, 1 in the other, or 0 in another. But that's the rough structure. And then also allowing people in the off season to potentially rent a cabin and be choosing from a menu of, kind of self-guided learning with a mentor involved in movement arts, in meditation, in Chinese medicine. And so kind of offering that. We're not a school, but we offer education. We're not a gym or a martial arts academy, but we offer martial arts and movement. And we're not a monastery, but we offer meditation and an opportunity to slow down, look inside, and really cultivate oneself, really cultivate one's connectedness. And that's where I'll leave it today. Thanks for watching. Like I said, interact, give me a comment, let me know what you want to hear more of. Thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the vision. Thanks for helping me to stay still for long enough to make this. It's not even my cat. This is my neighbor's cat, and they went away for a vacation, and now he would rather be over here. So, on that note, cheers, and I'll talk to you next time.